This is the Buurion, and this is the Guurion. They are audio amplifiers. Why do they look like this? How do they work? How did I design them? What is inside? I will show you. High-end amplifier as a product is a combination of appearance, performance, and story. So let's see if we can find a story here. I wanted an amplifier that is small, while still giving the impression of something solid and powerful. I wanted a narrow shape, so that I can have several units stacked besides each other to have many channels without using too much shelf space. I wanted it to be cold, with no fans, no heat, because I also wanted it to be silent. It will use Class D amplifier modules, which makes it possible to actually make it like that. So I came up with this shape. It is small, it is clean, and it looks very nice. It has a sort of sophisticated appearance, and with the tech visible through the cover in the center section. Also, there is this the tactile feel of the real wood sections. It's part of the experience of the product. Some may argue that the best design for an audio amplifier is no amplifier, build it into the speaker. But that is something different. This is an audio amplifier that is meant to be visual and be a part of the sound system. It is meant to be something nice for the owner to enjoy. Functionality is simple. It's an audio amplifier. Connectors and power switch at the back, and a green power on LED and a red clip indicator on the front. Performance is such that it is completely transparent in sound quality. It means it's a perfect amplifier. It doesn't have any sound in itself. It can deliver a very high power. The Buurion is slightly smaller, as we saw. It has two 300 watts output power channels. The Guurion here has two 600 watts output power channels. It can be bridged into one 1200 watt monoblock that you can hold with one hand like this. The performance can of course be verified objectively. It is not difficult to do those measurements. We will have a look at some of the graphs from measurements of these amplifiers. A measurement that reveals very quickly the qualities of signal processing for audio signals is 19 plus 20 kilohertz modulation. They will often have those 19 and 20 kilohertz spikes on the spectrum, and then we have rainbow of modulation distortion products around it. And as you can see on these amplifiers, there is practically no modulation distortion. Also the 1 kHz is the first difference product, 20 minus 19. That is the 1 kHz product we see there. Also the distortion, harmonic distortion for a single sine input signal is very low, and you see that it is entirely dominated by very low order harmonics. You can see the distortion versus frequency chart, very low distortion, and all higher distortion products drowns into the noise spectrum. Here is the noise spectrum. You see, when you put your ear up to the speaker, there is no noise and there is no hum. These amplifiers, they have no sound. Of course, that's not entirely true, because once you push an amplifier to the limit, and this red indicator LED blinks, then it will have a sound. And different amplifiers tend to sound can sound quite different when they are pushed. But of course, when you have this much power available, this is very hard to get close to this limit. And when you have no noise that is audible, and you have distortion, which you saw on those graphs I showed you, measurements, it is so low it is impossible for a human to hear it. Then we can be totally sure that it is actually sounding completely transparent. There is no sound from the amplifier. And is that good or is it bad? It is good, because then we have control of where we make the sound character in our sound system. It isn't in the amplifier. You make it a different place. The story for an audio amplifier is usually something about its spectacular sound, how it makes you feel when you hear your music playing on this special amplifier. Since these amplifiers doesn't have any sound in themselves, you're free to make up whatever you want, which to me makes no sense. So there is no story like that, and thus no product. The cooling is sort of a mini climate system. The heat is generated and eventually dissipated to the surroundings, keeping the temperature in the amplifier and the circuits under control. This works through conduction of heat mainly, and it is the surface of the aluminium cooling system that transfers the heat to the surroundings. The heat is generated inside the electronics in the components. Then it is conducted by the aluminium structure into all the surfaces. Aluminium has quite high heat capacity, so when you switch on the amplifier, it takes some time before all the heat is evenly distributed across the cooling surfaces and the chassis. And then it will start to create this miniature climate system, which through the surfaces and these pipes creates a very slow motion airstream that will help to conduct the heat from the aluminium surfaces and into the air around. Conduction inside the aluminium is very efficient, so it's approximately the same temperature all over. Conduction from aluminium into the air is far less efficient. That is why most professional amplifiers and so on, they have powerful fans to make a lot of noise. It sounds like a jet engine. It's hopeless to have in your room. It is cold. It runs at 30 degrees temperature on the heat sink measured close to the output devices. One may argue that the cooling on these amplifiers are overkill. But that's what audio amplifiers are about, overkill. And low temperature is not a bad thing for electronics and amplifiers. In addition to keeping output devices healthy and cold, all the other electronic components also benefit from the heat design of the whole structure, because air flows freely around the components. And this makes the components that otherwise would be inside a sealed box now much colder, because they are more in free space and are cooled by air circulating around them. And colder electronic components means better reliability and less failure. This amplifier will last much longer than the similar amplifier card inside a sealed box. This is how they are built. It's a center frame of rigid aluminium goes through the whole construction. Onto this frame, the electronics and the cooling is mounted, as well as the front section and the rear section. Everything is connected to this frame. It uses an off-the-shelf Class D amplifier module from an industry-leading supplier. The problem for me is, of course, that I don't get to design my nice exotic audio circuits. So that's a shame. But I can live with that if I can design an amplifier that looks like this. But it's so compact, so solid, and so nice. Perceived value is a combination of appearance and story. Design has to be seen in context with its intended use, intended user. So story then becomes something about its shape, its visual appearance. So, after all, I actually have a story about the Buurion and the Guurion amplifiers. Good design is something that is nice and makes sense. And in the context of being an audio amplifier for audio enthusiasts, they are sensible and good designs. I have more designs to show. Perhaps the small F15 loudspeaker. I may do a video on that one.